Alright, hey guys, welcome back to this fourth part of Hey Guys, sculpting a clay head. Alright, so off camera I did a little bit of extra work. I added in the eyelid for the other eye. I put on an ear. I'm going to go over how I did that and the decisions that I made, and I decided I wanted him to have a little bit more chin. I like that chin, and I put in, you know, the lines that come down off of the nose. I think some people call that like the frown lines. I don't really call it the frown lines, but that little line. And you know, one of the important things is that that line is not just like a trench between the lips and the cheeks. The cheeks are actually a little bit out, and the lips, so that line should be cut in and then sloped back into the lips, leaving the edge where the lips are. So I'm using this this rubber tool. And you know, one thing that I notice a lot is that people will be using these tools and they'll get all caked up with clay and they won't do anything about it. Well, just take a metal tool. You can either use the cutting end like this one, or you can use the round end on the handle. Clean those tools back up. Scrape off that extra clay. Makes the working with the tools a lot easier. All right, so kind of cut in my nostrils a little bit more, did a little bit of that. Now, one of the things that I accidentally did as I was doing this was that I ended up shortening up the mouth. You can really see it over here on this side of the mouth. So I took the metal tool and I cut in between the two lips. Now, one of the things that's kind of nice to do, adds that just that little extra bit of realism, is I kind of gave the tool a little bit of a twist at the end, and it kind of gave that little parted lip look in the corner of the lips. It makes it look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to bring that over, cut that in, and at the end just make a little turn and, you know, kind of flatten some stuff out with your thumb, with your finger, whatever, smooth it kind of down so it's not so sharp. And I think that looks pretty good. Some people like to have something in the eyes. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do just a dot. Put that tool in there, give it a little bit of a turn, give it a little bit of a turn, and that looks a little bit more realistic, not just a dot right in the center. It should have like a little bit of a shape to it. Sometimes I try to make it a little bit more of kind of a V. A little bit creepy, but it's okay. Better than a blank stare, I suppose. All right, so let's do the ear over here. Now, if you remember from our diagram that I pulled out before, the ear is in line with the top of the eyes, and it comes up from the jawline. Okay, so he doesn't really have too strong of a jawline, but he does. I might, in the end, add a little bit more back here to the skull. All right, so when I make it an ear, I'm going to have the part where it attaches to his face be kind of thin. So it's sort of a wedge shape piece of clay to begin with. So it's thinner on one side. I don't know how well that can be seen. Thinner on one side, fatter out on the edge, and I roll it over. I start with the shape that I think kind of looks a little bit like a question mark. So, you know, a funny way to think of it is like when you grab your ear and you say, what? Like a question, well, you're holding onto your ear. I don't know. So that's kind of my generic shape ear right there. Okay, I don't know how well that's showing up on the camera. Kind of my generic shape ear. So lining this up with the eye and the jawline, so I have the jawline coming up like this. I'm going to just smooth in the front part right in here, just that part right there. Leave a little bit of a lobe hanging down, let this curve come up and over the top, and leave it like that. Now, since I know I'm making a mold of this, I want this to be rounded, but I want this to be kind of laid back against the back of the head a little bit. I guess this ear is a lot smaller than the other ear. Let me make this ear a little bit bigger. All right, so when I make it a little bit bigger, I'm going to just pull it off, because big deal. It's not hard to stick it back on. Let's see if I can get a little bit more comparative to this side. All right, that's about the right size. Could be a little bit thicker. Add a little bit to the earlobe. All right, so go back to making that sort of question mark looking shape. A little bit of a long earlobe. Let's shorten that up a little bit. All right, good. So nice rounded edge, tapered like a wedge. You can see that. And then I'm lining up the top of the ear with the eye, and then the front part of the ear to the jawline, and I'm just smoothing in this part. So, you know, there's no one exact ear shape. Everybody has just different ears. Some people have earlobes that dangle, some people have earlobes that are attached. You decide. I almost always have a little bit of a dangly, just because I think more people are accustomed to that. And if I'm not trying to make a specific person, I tend to generalize. All right. There's only two parts of the inner ear that I ever worry about doing as I'm making an ear, and that is this little crease that goes around the top, around the kind of the outside. I don't even bring it all the way down. So I just established this one line here, and then I establish an ear canal. I just dig it in, I make a hole, push stuff around until I think it looks right. If I closed up too much of the hole, maybe I'll stick that back in there and make that hole a little bit deeper. And that's it. I don't get all super involved worrying about making a perfect ear. That's enough that people know that that's an ear. My ears are symmetrical to each other. They kind of stick out about the same. They're at the same level, height-wise. Ooh, that's a little too cat-like. Open that up a little bit more. Ooh, kind of a star eye. Pat that in a little bit. So we have an ear on this side. They look like they're lined up, look like they're in the right position. There we go. Now, the question is, do we add a neck or not to add a neck? I think that if you add a neck and you just have the head and a neck and you don't do the shoulders, then it looks like someone that has been decapitated. And I think that doesn't look very good. If we leave it just the head itself and no neck, then it doesn't look like a decapitated head. It just looks like a head. And it doesn't look so gross. So I think this is pretty good. I think the last thing I'm going to do, and I'm not going to bother doing this on camera necessarily, so I think I'm going to give him a little bit more cranium in the back and call it good. So thanks for watching. This is a good way to just create sort of a generic head. You can change the shape of the nose around. You can kind of change the way the lips look a little bit, the eyes. Like I said, everyone's head is the same. It's not the same. You can make it any way you want it. The important parts are these basic structures. You want the bridge of the nose to be set back in from the forehead line. You want the eyes in the middle of the head. From the eyes to the bottom of the nose is half of the distance from the eyes to the chin. And then between the bottom of the nose and the chin should be the mouth. General guidelines, they're just there to kind of help get you started. You don't have to you can make slight modifications, but you want to kind of stay as close to the general guidelines as possible. Avoid making a pancake face by setting those eyes way back in. Remember that the eyelid follows and lays on top of the eyeball, both the bottom and the top. The bottom eyelid is underneath the top eyelid and the bottom lip. So that's for making the eyes taper off together. For the lips sit out in front of the teeth, so they have to poke out some. You can see that here. Remember that the top lip slopes back gradually. The bottom lip slopes in rather sharply. Nice curvature into the lips. I always like to do this little push-in thing right here. Kind of gives a little bit more dynamic form to the way the lips come together, but we don't want our lips to look like they're sausages laid on top of the face. All right, thanks for joining me, guys.